Woo Krop in Cincinnati hit Ease in 1978, running for 4 seasons and turning a struggling fictional radio station into one of the sharpest ensemble comedies of its era, with writers giving every character a unique comic frequency, and the actors who stepped into those roles lived lives that were funny, messy, and in a few cases, cut much shorter than anyone ever wanted. This is where they all ended up. First up, Howard Hesseman as Dr. Johnny Fever, the laid-back, counterculture disc jockey whose hatred of authority and deep love of music made him the moral compass of a show that hid its brains under layers of absurdity. Born George Howard Hesseman, he was 38 when the show premiered in 1978, bringing a personal history that went way beyond his acting resume. Back in 1963, 15 years before Woo Krop ever existed, he spent 90 days in jail on a weed charge that was later thrown out over entrapment. That heavy backstory gave Johnny Fever a level of real-world credibility most other actors could only pretend to have. His first marriage to Catherine Mazin ended in 1974, and he tied the knot with French actress Caroline Ducroc in 1989. Staying together until he passed. His next big role after the show was Charlie Moore in Head of the Class, a part that brought him a whole new audience in a different decade, proving he could easily anchor a sitcom on his own. He kept working steadily with TV guest spots until 2018, making an appearance on Fresh Off the Boat near the end. Howard Hesseman passed away on January 29, 2022 at 81. Next, Loni Anderson as Jennifer Marlowe, the brilliant, highly capable receptionist whose warmth, intelligence, and total command of any room she walked into made her one of the most subversive characters on network TV, during an era when the network executives had absolutely no clue they were airing anything subversive at all. Only 33, when the show started, she built Jennifer into a character who flipped the script on every blonde stereotype, and fans absolutely loved her, turning her into one of the most famous faces on TV before the first season even wrapped. She would have been 80 in 2026, having passed away on August 3rd, 2025. At 79 years old, she married 4 times, with her third marriage to Burt Reynolds from 1988 to 1994, fueling relentless tabloid drama long after they split up, and her 1995 memoir. She claimed Reynolds was physically abusive during their marriage, a claim he fiercely denied. She finally found peace with musician Bob Flick, marrying him in 2008 and staying together until her passing. Her later years included the sitcom Nurses, along with several TV movies, including a 2023 holiday special, Ladies of the 80s, A Diver's Christmas, marking one of her final screen appearances, a perfect last role for an actress whose real genius was making everyone underestimate her. Third, Gary Sandy as Andy Travis, the new program director whose arrival at Woo Krop set the whole show in motion, providing a steady, slightly stressed presence that gave the wild cast a solid anchor to spin around for 4 seasons. Just 32 when the show launched, he turned 80 in 2026, reaching that milestone while staying deeply connected to the acting world through regional theater, choosing to skip the Hollywood rat race to focus on building a more personal, fulfilling career. During the show, he was famously linked to his co-star, Loni Anderson, a real-life connection they both talked about with varying degrees of honesty in the years that followed. Other than that, he has kept his personal life almost completely private, a deliberate retreat from a Hollywood spotlight he never wanted to chase. In 2025, he was recognized as a giant of broadcasting by the Library of American Broadcasting Foundation. It was a tribute to what Woo Krop gave to the airwaves, not just what it did for his career. He also popped up in the holiday special, A Very Carolyn Christmas, proving he has never fully walked away from the stage. Next is Gordon Jumper's Arthur Carlson, the sweet, completely overwhelmed station manager known to everyone at Woo Krop simply as the big guy, whose mix of zero competence and real authority made him a legendary sitcom character of the late 1970s. 46 when the show debuted, he brought years of TV and stage experience to the role, giving Carlson a sweet sincerity that kept him from ever becoming a total joke. No matter how spectacularly his decisions fell apart, he was married twice, first to a woman he had 4 kids with. He later married Betty Sue McKeever, staying together from 1993 until his death. The role that made him famous outside of Woo Krop was another acting gig It was a commercial campaign. He played the Maytag repairman for 14 years, a legendary run that embedded him in pop culture. Many viewers knew him from appliance commercials rather than the Cincinnati radio station. He kept guest starring on shows like Seinfeld before finally stepping back from show business in his final years. Gordon jumped past on September 22, 2003, at age 71. Number 5. Carol Bruce as Lillian Carlson, Arthur's formidable mother. Her 10 episodes across 3 seasons perfectly explained the station manager's constant anxiety, making everything about him finally make sense. Born Shirley Livy, she joined the cast in 1979 at 59 years old, bringing Broadway credentials that stretched back to the 1940s. Her Tony nomination reflected a stage career so serious that her TV appearances felt like a visit from a completely different era of show business. Her marriage to Milton Nathanson produced a daughter, Julie, and grandchildren who survived her. Her guest roles in her final decades included spots on The Golden Girls and Doogie Howser, MD, introducing her to millions of television viewers who never saw her perform on a Broadway stage. Her final acting credit came in the series That's This Life in 2000, before she retired from show business entirely. Carol Bruce passed away on October 9, 2007, at 87 years old, closing out a career that started before most of her WKRP castmates were born. Number 6. Richard Sanders as Les Nessman, the painfully earnest, accident-prone news director whose famous Invisible Office Walls, Bucky News Hawk Award, and pure commitment to his dignity in the face of constant embarrassment made him one of the show's most beloved comedic creations. 38 years old at the premiere, he is 85 today, making him one of the last surviving members of the original cast. He married script supervisor and writer Marilyn Marco, building a life together within the entertainment industry. As a classically trained actor, he brought a sharp, technical precision to Liz Nessman's cluelessness, keeping the character from ever feeling cheap or mean-spirited, a much harder balance to pull off across 89 episodes than it sounds. He returned to the character in the new WKRP in Cincinnati from 1991 to 1993, playing Les with that same dedication. He also appeared in the 2000 film Men of Honor, before eventually stepping away from acting entirely. He has lived quietly in Washington State for a long time now, keeping a healthy distance from the industry that gave him one of the most memorable characters in television history. Number 7. Frank Bonner as Herb Tarlek, the loud, played suited, aggressively confident sales manager whose complete inability to read a room, combined with absolute certainty that he was the most charming guy in the room, made every single scene he was in completely unpredictable. Born Frank Woodrow Boris Jr., he was 36 at the premiere. He brought a high-energy physicality to Herb that became even more incredible after his 1979 accident. During production, a parasailing accident caused his canopy to collapse, sending him falling 20 feet and leaving him on crutches for multiple episodes. The show simply wrote the injury into the script instead of letting it derail the season. He married 5 times, ultimately finding his way back to his former high school sweetheart Gail Hardinge. They married in 2006 and stayed together until his death. Later, he built a highly successful directing career behind the camera, with directing credits on Who's the Boss and Head of the Class and City Guys, putting his stamp on television without ever having to step in front of the camera. Frank Bonner passed away on June 16, 2021, at 79 years old. Number 8. Alan Ann Clury as Carmen Carlson, Arthur's wife, whose 4 appearances across the series finally gave the station manager's home life a face and proved that the madness he managed at WKRP was something he could ever leave behind at the office. She joined the cast in 1979 at 52 years old, carrying a brilliant theater reputation built across decades on the stage. Back during the golden age of Broadway, her versatility on stage was incredible. She could sing, dance, and act with total ease. That made her a true triple threat back when the term actually meant something real about what performers had to deliver. She married actor George Gaines, a face later generations mainly remember as the endlessly confused Henry Warnemont from Punky Brewster, lasting from 1953 until his 2016 death. That was a 60-year partnership across 2 busy careers. Along the way, they raised 2 children. She retired in 1993 after starring in hits like They Shoot Horses, Dante, and All the President's Men. Those 2 films, shot nearly a decade apart, showed the massive range she really had when she got the right scripts. Alan Ann Clury passed away on May 21, 2018, at 91. She would have been 99 in 2026. Number 9. Tim Reed as the cool Venus flytrap. This philosophical DJ brought a unique kind of smarts to the station across 87 episodes. He gave the WKRP airwaves a voice that the rest of the cast simply could not have matched on their own. Just 33 when the show started, he is 81 today and spent the years after WKRP building a massive legacy that goes way beyond acting. Since 1982, he has been married to Daphne Maxwell Reid, famously known as the second Aunt Vivian on Fresh Prince. That 40-year marriage has quietly become one of the entertainment industry's most enduring love stories. He also has 2 children from an earlier marriage to Rita Sykes. After WKRP, he kept busy acting and producing, working on hits like Simon and Simon and Sister. He also created the highly praised show Frank's Place, marking one of his biggest achievements after leaving Cincinnati television. Today, he focuses on the Legacy Media Institute, a nonprofit he started to train the next wave of filmmakers. It is a project built on his belief that the future of Hollywood depends on who gets to use the tools. Number 10. Sam Anderson as Mason Noble. That was just one of several characters he played across 4 guest slots between 1979 and 1981. Those gigs gave him an early start in the exact kind of television roles that would soon define his long, busy career. He was 34 during his very first guest spot, and today at 81, he is one of those classic character actors whose face you recognize more and more as the years go by. His most famous role came years later as Bernard Nadler across 6 seasons of Lost, a gig that forced him to find real emotion within a heavy sci-fi story that put massive demands on every single actor. His role in the 2022 movie Where the Crawdads Sing added a major film credit to a resume already packed with decades of incredibly reliable TV work. He married Barbara Anderson in 1985. Right when his career was taking off, he was starting the long grind of character acting that would make him famous to fans who never even heard of that late 70s Cincinnati radio show. Number 11. Edie McClurg as Lucille Tarlac, Herb's wife. Her 3 episodes gave the show's most incredibly confident character a domestic mirror that showed exactly what his total cluelessness looked like from the other side. Born Edith Mary McClurg, she was around 28 or 29 during her guest spots and is 80 today. That cheerful Midwestern energy she brought to Lucille wasn't some huge stretch for her. It was really just a concentrated version of the unique comedic voice she had been building on the radio, TV, and in movies all at once. She never married or had kids. Later on, her voice acting career became her biggest professional move, featuring roles in Disney's Cars and Frozen movies, putting her voice in 2 of the most massive, money-making animated hits of the last 20 years. Sadly, the news about her personal life recently has been much tougher to hear. Back in 2019, loved ones filed for a conservatorship after sharing her battle with dementia, and in 2022, legal filings alleged she was a victim of elder abuse. Someone had supposedly moved into her house and tried to marry her, knowing she could legally make that choice. It was a situation that grabbed major headlines and deeply worried the fans who had followed her for decades. Number 12. Hamilton Camp as Del Murdoch. He popped up in 3 episodes between 1978 and 1981. American audiences already knew his face and voice from his folk music career, and a television run had lasted nearly 2 decades before he ever walked through the double doors at Crop. He was born Robin S. Camp between 43 and 46. During his appearances on the show, he brought the relaxed confidence of a seasoned pro who was never intimidated by cameras or crowds to every single scene. He married Rosjada Lisa Jovita Cheese back in 1961. They stayed together until her death in 2002. A 40-year partnership and 6 kids raised completely outside the Broward Hollywood spotlight that his day job forced him to live in. And his acting work never slowed down. He appeared in Desperate Housewives in 2005 in what became his final guest role. Later, a movie called Hard 4 was released after his passing. It was a final credit he never got to see. Hamilton Camp passed away on October 2nd, 2005, at 70 years old. Number 13. Ann Wolfe as Hirsch, who popped up in 4 episodes during the final season. His brief stint on WKRP was just one tiny blip in an acting career so massive and so incredibly long that it belongs in a totally different league. It shows what true lifetime dedication to a craft actually looks like. He was 85 or 86 during his appearances in 1981 and 1982. That means he stepped onto that set with over 50 years of film and TV work already under his belt, and directors were still eager to put him in front of the camera. Over 400 screen credits piled up across 7 decades of continuous acting. That number does not show a man chasing fame. It shows a guy who simply never stopped showing up. He married Elizabeth Schroeder in 1924, and they stayed together for 68 years. That marriage outlasted almost every other part of his incredibly long life, enduring right up until the very end. His final credit was in Dick Tracy in 1990, playing a Forger. That last gig came nearly 60 years after his very first, and Wolfe passed away on January 23, 1992, at 95 years old. Number 14. Jan Smithers as Bailey Quarters, quietly sharp, highly competent producer across 86 episodes. She was easily the most underestimated person in that entire building. That was exactly the point. Her slow transition out of her quiet shell gave the show some of its most satisfying character development in its entire run. She was 29 when the show started, and she is 76 today. Years earlier, she landed on the Newsweek cover at 17 after a bad motorcycle crash left visible scars. That sudden burst of fame happened before her acting career even started. It gave her a messy, complicated relationship with being watched, which perfectly shaped how she played Bailey Quarters. Her first marriage to Kip Whitman in 1971 lasted barely a year. Her second marriage to actor James Brolin in 1986 was the one that caught serious public attention. It was a high-profile matchup that brought a daughter, Molly, before they divorced in 1995. Brolin later married Barbra Streisand in 1998. The massive difference in their post-divorce lives shows just how much distance Jan chose to put between herself and Hollywood after quitting acting in 1987. Since then, she has focused on spiritual and environmental causes, only popping up occasionally at fan conventions to celebrate a show whose audience still deeply cares about what went down inside that Cincinnati radio station, and about the quietly brilliant woman who kept it all together behind the scenes.